Good morning, students. In today's class, we are going to continue with the fundamental rights and we are going to discuss some very important ones. So, in the previous class, we had finished till the right against exploitation, which were Articles 23 and 24. So, today, moving further, we will be discussing Articles 25 to 28, which is the right to freedom of religion. Now, as you already are aware, India is a secular country, and the word itself should explain you that everybody here has a right to follow any religion of their choice. And we do not entertain any single religion, we do not have a state religion. All religions here are equal and command equal respect. So this article basically it mentions certain criteria which we are going to discuss right now. The first one says that all people are entitled to freedom of conscience and the right to freely profess, practice, and propagate their religion. So, freedom of conscience means that morally they have a right to choose any religion and they can freely profess, that means they can openly declare whichever religion they prefer, they can practice it, and they can propagate, they can spread their faith in any way they deem possible. This is the meaning of the first one. The second one says, subject to public order, morality, and health, every religious denomination or any section thereof shall have the right to establish and maintain institutions for religious or charitable purposes, to manage their own affairs in matters of religion, to own and acquire movable and immovable property, and to administer such property in accordance with law. So basically, what this means is that as long as it does not affect the order of the society or the moral values of anyone, any religious group can do these four things. Firstly, they can establish any religious institution, be it a church or be it a mosque or be it madrasas or any Hindu schools teaching. So, any such institution can be established by them. Secondly, they can manage their own religious affair in whatever way they feel it's possible. Thirdly, they can own movable or immovable property. Supposingly, for their functioning, they need buses or they need some movable such properties or they need some immovable properties. Supposingly, there is a sanstha of a temple and it has acquired some property for charitable purposes, further purposes, that also it can do. And lastly, it can administer their property in accordance with law. So, whatever possessions they have, that has to be according to the law, it cannot be more or less. So the third point that mentions is that no person shall be compelled to pay any taxes for the promotion of their particular religion. So like I just mentioned, India is a secular country, so we cannot pay taxes. We don't have to pay any taxes for a religion. The last two are interrelated. The first one says that no religious instruction shall be provided in any institutions wholly maintained out of state funds. That means if there is any religious institution like any school or any college which is receiving funds or money from the government, in such schools or colleges, no religious knowledge, no religious instruction can be imparted. And even though, supposingly, the second one says that even though religious instruction may be imparted in educational institutions recognized by or receiving funds from the state, no person attending these institutions can be compelled to receive that instruction without the consent of himself or his guardian in case he is a minor. What this means, supposingly, if I open a school and that is partially, that is not completely, but a little bit funded by the state. So, in that case, I can impart my religion in my school. But supposingly, I have people from other religion also in that school. I cannot force them to attend. It is their choice. Or if that child is a minor, less than 18 years old, it is the choice of their parents. So, supposingly, if I am a Christian and I open a Christian school, and in that school, Hindus are also studying, so I cannot force the Hindus to attend my religious Christian belief. It is up to the consent of that person if he wants to attend it or not. So this is basically the meaning of the right to freedom of religion. This is a very very important question for 4 marks. So please remember that you will, if I ask you for 4 marks, what do you understand by the right to freedom of religion? You will say the right to freedom of religion is contained in Articles 25 to 28 of the Indian Constitution, and it is very important because India is a secular nation. The following provisions have been given, and any 4 points you can mention. You can mention that all people are entitled to choose, freely profess, practice, or propagate their own religion. No taxation has to be given for following of a particular religion. No religious instruction can be provided in any institution funded by the states. And any religious institution can establish or it can maintain property in accordance with law. Any four of these provisions you can mention. Now, after Article 28, we are discussing Articles 29 and 30, which are the cultural and educational rights. So, first we are talking about Article 29. So, these two rights basically, first you need to know they are given to the minority sections in India. What do we mean by minority section? So, it cannot be denied that majorly India is a Hindu country. Most of the population here are Hindus, but we have diversity. We have other people from different religion, different background, different culture. They are also inhabiting in India. So such people, they need certain protection because they are not in majority, they are in minority in the country. So this minority can be on the basis of religion, it can be on the basis of area, it can be on the basis of culture. Any such minority, they get this right. So you will say the first one says that Article 29 gives a section of the people or whole of them the right to preserve their distinct language, script, or culture. So it may be a religious minority like other religions like Islam or Christianity or Sikhism. It may be a tribal minority. It may be the hilly side area like Assamese, Bodo, these cultures. So all these people, they have been given the right to protect their own language, script, and culture. And these people also cannot be denied, they cannot be refused admission to any educational institution. No discrimination can be made on the basis of religion, caste, or any other ground. So this is Article 29, which gives them the right to protect their language, script, and culture. Article 30 basically tells them how to do it. How will they preserve their language, script, and culture? So Article 30 gives these minorities the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. So basically, these people, these minority people, they have a right and they can establish and they can run their own educational institutions like schools and colleges. And the state will not do any different treatment if it is giving any grant or funds. And these schools also cannot deny admission to the general people if they are deserving admission in such schools. So please remember, Article 29 is giving them the right to protect their language, culture, and Article 30 is telling them how. So by establishing or educational institutions like schools and colleges. Which brings us to the last article that we are discussing, the right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. Now this is considered to be the most important among all the articles. Let us understand why. Firstly, what is the meaning of this right to constitutional remedies? So basically, fundamental rights we had studied in the first lesson itself, that they are contained in part 3. They have come from USA and they are justiciable. That means if somebody is taking your fundamental rights, you can go to a court and you can ask for justice. And through this article, you can ask for justice. So that means that if your fundamental rights are being taken from you, you can file a complaint, you can file a suit in the High Court or the Supreme Court. So this is the meaning. Fundamental rights are justiciable and a suit can be filed in a High Court or a Supreme Court if fundamental rights are violated, they are taken away from you. Now this article has been called as the heart and soul of the Constitution by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now why do you think this is the heart and soul? Heart and soul means the most indispensable, most important article among all the fundamental rights. The reason is, like right now I told you that if in case any fundamental rights are taken from us, this right will make sure that we get it back. So had this right not been there, there would have been no proper machinery to make sure that we are getting the other rights or not. So you can say that this right in itself is protecting all the other rights. And if this had not been there, others would also have been meaningless. That is why it is very important and it is called the heart and soul of the Constitution. So that is what we have written, that this right is given to the citizens that they could move to a Supreme Court for the enforcement of their other fundamental rights. This right protects all the other rights, and had this right not been there, all the other rights would have been meaningless. This is a very important question for your exam. State Article 32 of the Constitution, and why is it called the heart and soul of the Constitution? And lastly, we are discussing that, okay, then Article 32 tells us that we can go to the court. What can the court do? So what is done to enforce Article 32? So under this, the Supreme Court or the High Court, they are empowered, they are given the power to issue writs. Now what are these writs? So this writ is basically a formal written order which is issued by the Supreme Court or the High Court to provide legal remedies to individuals who do not get ordinary protection under ordinary laws. So basically, this means the writ is a formal written order which is passed by the High Court or Supreme Court to any public body and asking them to do their work properly and to protect the fundamental rights of a particular citizen. So, supposingly, if I'm not getting any proper public services like pension or something, or if supposingly being a normal citizen I'm arrested without any reason, then I can go to the High Court or Supreme Court and ask for my fundamental right, and the court can issue writs or formal written order to these bodies. So please remember that the power, what do they do? They have the power to issue writs. So with this we have finished all the fundamental rights. Just a brief recapitulation. We have studied Article 14 to 18, the right to equality, under which we had studied right to Article 14 was equality before law and equality in protection for law. Article 15 was it prohibited any discrimination on any grounds. Article 16 provided equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 17 abolished untouchability, and Article 18 banned titles. Then we studied about Articles 19 to 22, which were the right to freedom, collection of six freedom that we had done. Then after 22, we moved to Articles 23 and 24, which were right against exploitation. Article 23 provided freedom from slavery, beggary, and forced labor, and also made human trafficking illegal. Article 24 prohibits the employment of children in factories or mines and makes bonded labor illegal. Today we read Articles 25 to 28, the right to freedom of religion. Because we are a secular nation, we have a right to follow any religion of our choice. Then we talked about Articles 29 and 30, which are the rights for minorities to protect their language, script, and culture, and they can establish educational institutions. And finally, we discussed about the heart and soul of the Constitution, which is Article 32, the right to constitutional remedies. This right gives us that we can go to a court and ask for justice if our fundamental rights are taken away from us. So these are all the fundamental rights. We will be discussing about fundamental duties in the next class. I hope these are very, very clear to you. Thank you.